my presentation is very different. So we decided we were going to have lightning talks on whatever new ideas we had. And this idea, which is a question, in the form of a question. So I really don't have an answer here, and so I thought it was perfect to get feedback from you esteemed folks, is should we propose an interim conservation practice standard for drainage water recycling? So we mean an NRCS conservation practice standard here. Anything starts out as an interim, which means the 700 series, and I have to look here, they're prepared by the state to address where we don't have a standard yet or where none of them are suitable. And then the second paragraph says if they may or may not go on to become an actual standard. So this is what we know of the process. Since we have been meeting as the Ag Drainage Management Systems Task Force, we've seen 3 new ones go in that have gone through this process. 554, Drainage Water Management, 605, Denitrifying Bioreactor, and 604, Saturated Buffer. They were all a 700 number first, I think, and so it's been really good to see how they have advanced to being in the regular list. Drainage water recycling, as you know, it has different parts of it. So it's got the public benefit, which is especially the capture of nutrients. That's what is valuable to everybody, and in my opinion, at least, deserves public funding for that part. It's interesting in that there's another part of it, which is more the private benefits. Putting in irrigation, which increases yield, is primarily a benefit to the farmer, although there are some possible nutrient benefits by keeping the yield more even. You don't build up the organic matter in the soil, right? So there's these two kinds of benefits. Some conservation practice standards can potentially be used, and some of you may remember, I don't know if you do, in 2016, I invited several of the state conservation engineers to talk about whether these could be put in. The most obvious one is pond, which, as I was putting this together this afternoon, I can't remember what's the problem with pond, but there's some reason that it's difficult to use, but it seems like it could work. The other really obvious one is irrigation reservoir, 436. And that one, I know the problem with it is it's designed for where there's already irrigation. So the big tailwater systems in Mississippi and Arkansas, for example, use that conservation practice standard. But at least in Indiana, I know we couldn't use that one for a new drainage water recycling system because we don't already have the irrigation. Beth Claresia in Indiana thought that the most probable one is actually sediment basin, oddly, because when you looked at the considerations and the purpose, she felt like that one could be used. So we've done a lot of talking over the years. As I've prepared this, I think there's 2 reasons that this would be beneficial. That even if we used irrigation reservoir or pond or whatever, it doesn't focus on the whole system. So it would be just the storage part of it. And that's not ideal, right? If it's a system we're talking about, it seems like a standard for a whole system would be beneficial. The other reason is there's something special, I don't know what to say, something auspicious about the list of NRCS conservation practices. I think there's about 175 of them now, and that's the list that's used by a lot of other agencies. For example, our state non-point source agencies for 319 funding, I assume this is the same way in other states, they look to the NRCS list. More recently, the state nutrient reduction strategies that our Mississippi River Basin states are taking, they look also to that list. So a standard that makes it on that list gives a lot more, gravitas. This is a real practice. But there's probably a lot of cons. Those were 2 benefits. I thought, pros. So I really thought this would work for a discussion here of pros and cons. If we decide to do it, we would need to identify what's in it and who would move it forward. That's not the goal of the discussion here. If you want to discuss that, that's fine. But really the big question is, should we do this?